Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Whenever you get a chance to watch this, I want to welcome you to Wisdom Wednesday. My name is Reverend Richard Pacheco, and as always, I am glad and grateful for you to join me today, watching this whenever you do. And join us every Monday for our Meditation Monday, as well as every Wednesday for our Wisdom Wednesday. And again, you can watch this on YouTube where you can see me doing this, or you can go to our podcast and also listen to it whether you're driving or jogging or whatever it is. So we want to give you two ways to listen to this. So with that being said, we talked about last week that today we would be starting our four-part lesson plan entitled Being Your Badass Self. Now, the author of this talk originally was Reverend Michelle Whittington, who was gracious to give me her notes. And because I had shared that we both had a love of the book that this is based on, which is You Are a Badass, How to Stop Doubting Your Greatness and Start Living an Awesome Life by Jen Sincero. In fact, Audible just had a sale on her other book called You Are a Badass at Making Money. And it's not a book about how to make money, but how to have the right mindset around money as a tool. So you can check that one out as well. But Jen Sincero has a few books all around that badass theory. And the person who actually wrote this lesson originally, kind of in her time, her badass was someone on a motorcycle. So riding a bike, having sunglasses, going out there. And I agree. I mean, that freedom, imagine, of being on a motorcycle. As I grew up as a martial artist, a badass would be a Bruce Lee, a Chuck Norris, and as I began to grow up, that badass could be someone in a suit and sunglasses with jewelry. It could be anything. It was just an image based on the media we watched. And as I said last week, badasses could be anyone. For me, people who speak and inspire people who are luminaries in the New Thought movement, even reverends that I met through Unity, when they speak and they touch my heart, can fall into that same category. But the question now becomes, when we talk about our badass self, is are we willing to make that leap into that area? See, a lot of us, we come to these type of spiritual centers, we come to these different modalities of healing ourselves, and we're looking for that peace and that calmness, and we usually go at it from a comfort zone. But imagine what you can accomplish if you can just step outside of that comfort zone. Today's talk is actually entitled Take Off the Handbrakes of History. So imagine allowing us to let go of that handbrake, or let go of the brake in general. As a child, I remember learning how to drive, and my father would be holding have me hold the steering wheel, and he had me on his lap, and he would be handling the brakes and the gas. And of course, when you first go out, what is he doing? He's riding the brake. We're moving probably 5 to 10 miles an hour just to kind of give me the movement of the steering wheel. But imagine if he had let go of that brake and hit the gas while I was still steering. What could have I accomplished at that point at getting it? And what if we do the same thing in life and let go of that brake and allow us to go things? Imagine tapping into that God-given talent that each one of us individualized have to express into this world, and not be afraid and not put the brakes on so that we can express this out. And as I keep talking, some of you may have been looking at this or listening to this and saying, yeah, I don't know about that. In my training, I was taught something called toe tipping. Now, I lived about 4 blocks from the beach when I was a teenager and young adult. And I knew the people who lived there versus the people who are the tourists that were visiting the beach. See, the people that were the tourists, and they would come like at the beginning of the summer. So we'll say end of May, beginning of June. They would go to the water and they would put their toe in and they would touch the water. The water was still cold. So they would toe and then maybe put a foot in, like, oh no, I'll wait a little while. Then they'll do it again, put their toe in, put their foot in, still too cold. And maybe this time they'll be brave enough to go in just about to the ankle, and the same thing, too cold. And they spend an hour doing this. And then you knew the people who lived near the beach because they knew the water was cold, and the only way to do it was to jump right in, get that initial cold out, and bam, your body adjusted to the temperature. And that hour that the toe tippers were sitting there going, I can do this, I can do this, those that lived there took that break off, jumped in the water, and they were playing in the water and enjoying ocean life at that point without ever having to waste time. And it's the same principle here. So, how many times did we try something? That's another way of looking at it. How many times have we tried something and it went wrong? And what did we do? We ran back to our comfort zone. We don't move forward because it's easier to say, well, I tried it and it didn't work, rather than I tried it, I failed, how do I move forward? You've always heard me of the book by John C. Maxwell called Failing Forward. And to me, that was always the important part. I had other work to do because I was listening to people around me and taking that in, and that's when I would put my brakes on. But when I was on my own and failing forward, I always kept that in my mind. I failed, but I failed 5 feet forward. What can I do from 4 feet to make the next step successful to take me to 10 feet, and so forth and so on. So I hope that today, as we talk about releasing the handbrake of history, we can put our history behind us, release the handbrake, move out of our comfort zone, and begin the journey to be our badass self. So as I said, the book that this talk, the next 4 weeks, including today, is based on Jen Sincero's You Are a Badass, How to Stop Doubting Your Greatness and Start Living an Awesome Life. If you want the book, go to Amazon. You'll find it there. It's a fabulous book. Again, for those that, may not be comfortable with certain language, the book does go into that language. But if you're willing to get past that, listen to her message. It is awesome. My wife has actually gone back to listen to it as we are beginning our business and we're helping her start her own business. This is something to get us motivated and moving forward. So with that being said, when we talk about staying in our comfort zone, a lot of times, especially now, we're in the month of August, we start moving into people going back to school, and you now have more responsibility, especially if you have children. You're preparing your children to go back to school. You're preparing yourself if you're working and all of this going on. We're in the middle of COVID again. We see another variant coming up. Everybody's trying to do enough to stay safe, but again, kind of regain back to life. And we this is where we start putting the brakes on because we're like, well, I don't really want to do something. Look what happened last year, rather than looking forward. So let's take the hand off the handbrakes of history so that we can be our badass self. So let's start with a quote from the book. And this is actually page 20 in the book. And it says, when you came screaming onto the planet, you were truly a bundle of joy, a wide-eyed creature incapable of doing anything but being in the moment. You had no idea that you had a body, let alone that you should be ashamed of it. When you looked around, everything just was. There was nothing about your world that was scary or too expensive or so last year as far as you were concerned. If something came near your mouth, you stuck it in. It came near your hand, you grabbed it. You were simply a human being. While you explored and expanded into your new world, you also received messages from the people around you about the way things are. From the moment you could take it in, they started filling you up with a lifetime's worth of beliefs, many of which have nothing to do with who you actually are or what is necessarily true. So, for example, the world is a dangerous place. You're too fat. Homosexuality is a curse. Hair shouldn't grow there. Going to college is important. Being a musician or an artist isn't a real career, and so on and so on and so on. The main source of this information was, of course, your parents, assisted by society at large. When they were raising you, your parents, in a genuine effort to protect you and educate you and love you with all their hearts, passed on the beliefs that learned from their parents, who learned them from their parents, who learned them from their parents. The trouble is, in many ways, of these beliefs have nothing to do with who they actually are or were, or what is actually true. I realize in making it sound like we're all crazy, but that's because we kind of are. So, and I've spoken about this a lot of times where I say, you know, a lot of people love to blame their parents for where their lives are now as an adults. And I've said, you know what? My parents did the best they can with what they knew. And their parents did exactly the same thing. But when we turn a certain age, I remember Connie Podestra on stage during the Success Foundation series, she actually said, remember that at the age of 18, you can make choices and you can choose to replicate what your parents told you, or you can choose to be your authentic self. And we're going to touch on that now. So as we're growing and believing a lot of things that weren't true about us, in fact, many of us today are living the illusion based on other people's beliefs. You know, when I talk about not being able to live society's teachings or society's beliefs, it's because I feel out of place. A lot of things that society is telling me I need to be or who I can be. I had to learn to stop listening to outside of myself and listen to what was genuinely inside of me, so I can hear that a true infinite voice in me, so that I can learn to be my authentic self. And when you meld those together, what an awesome person I am. But it takes work to get there. So when we think about this and we talk about moving out of our comfort zone, no matter how frightening that may be, we need to remember that we need to shake that belief off. Another thing I like to touch on is the fact that sometimes we need permission to move forward. So let's take a look at what our master teacher said. He turned to his apostles and says, all that I have done, you can do, and so much more. And yes, maybe I'm paraphrasing the verse, but he sat there and said, as your teacher, I have done things, call them miracles, call them laws of physics just brought into expression, whatever it is. And I am telling you that you can do exactly the same thing I did and so much more. So if you need permission, there it is. Right from the Bible that we study from. And there are so many other luminaries that are out there that have told you the exact same things, may not be using the same words, but have given you permission to be your authentic self and given you permission to tap into that infinite knowledge for which you can truly be who you need to be. So I want you to make a decision right now that it is time to take off those chains. Let go of that handbrake. Let history be in the past. And as I always remind you, the past and the future have nowhere to live but in your own mind. If you can let that go and be in the present right here, right now with me, let us take that handbrake off and let's begin that journey. And don't you agree right now that you're ready to do so? So let's go ahead and explore the different versions of yourself. And there's actually three versions. First is the false self. Second is our infinite self. And third is our authentic self. Take a guess at which has a hold of the handbrake. So your false self. So the false self, where the handbrakes of our history resides, all of our false and limiting beliefs hang out there. This is where we judge, obsess, analyze, criticize, worry that our ears are too big, our brains are too small. Our false self is so full of fear and doubt. It is also a relentless overachiever, insensibly, spinning around from thought to thought, stopping only when we need sleep, and I'm not even sure about then, but certainly reviving back up soon. As soon as we open our eyes, we're doing this circle over and over and over again. And although it is relentless, it really doesn't know what it wants. The false self is a seeker, always looking to the future. I'll be happy when. A grasper. The past was so much better, easier, and simpler. I want to return to then, or fearfully that today's good will go away. And a controller must have a say in how everything is done and how it turns out. Expand on these three a bit. We can look at, I talk about my journey to ministerial. Now, it took over 8 years to get here, where I've seen people do it in 4. And yes, there was a lot of voices in my head. You'll never be a minister because. You'll never reach the end because. We can't do this because. And even in my own mind, I had those limiting beliefs. Who am I to be a speaker? Who am I to be a life coach? Who am I to want to be a healer? Who am I to want to serve other people? What do I have to give other people? Those are the things, the limiting handbrakes, that fearful self, that false self, because I allowed things outside of myself to tell me who I'm supposed to be. And it's not even just the people, the movies we watch, the things we listen to, the commercials, all telling me exactly the same thing of what I'm supposed to look like. Who am I supposed to sound like? What am I supposed to do? And those are the voices and the hands that hold me back. And that's that false self within me. And it is that fear of the unknown. When we talk about the principles, we talk about 2 things. Principle number 2 says knowing your divine self. And we're going to talk about our authentic self and our infinite self, which reside around principles 1 and 2. But most important is number 5, knowing the truth and living that truth. But we can't do that while we're stuck in the false self. When we talk about the false self, I want you to take a moment. What does it look like for you? What does that false self sound like to you? And when you identify that false self and know that there's an exit, we can move on. Let's talk about the infinite self. So on the exact opposite end of the false self is the infinite self. It is your oneness with the one. That which beyond time and space of that infinite self. Ernest Holmes writes in the textbook on page 323, there is one infinite mind from which all things come. This mind through, in, and around us is the only mind there is, and every time we think we use it, air is one infinite spirit, and every time we say I am, we proclaim it. There is one infinite substance, and every time we move in it. There is one infinite God, and every time we speak to this God, we receive a direct answer. One, one, one. Talk, live, act, believe, and know that you are in the center of this one. Reverend Butterworth, and I may be paraphrasing this as well, talks about how God is how you are the center of all and the circumference of none. You are in everything. You are an expression of that which we call God, in and through everything. And that's where principle number 2 is. Because once we know our divinity and we plug into principle number 1, the omnipresence, the omnipotence, the omniscience of that which we know as one, the source, God, whatever name you give it, it is this oneness that we are in that gives us that. That which has no desire because it's already given. It is limitless power to which we are all connected. There is one and not two. Never forget that. Anywhere in the universe, just one. That one life is the substance of everything. It is the one in unity, but multiple in manifestation. It is one substance from which an infinity variety of different things come, but every one of those things is made out of that one thing. So let's take a visit to that principle again. When we talk about the trilogy in unity, and in traditional Christianity, we talk about the Holy Trinity, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. In unity, we know it as mind, idea, expression. 1 and 2 is one is the mind. 1 and 2 is the mind. It is the knowledge of the one source, the infinite power, the source that is around us. 2 is that we are part of that source. That source is within us, so that we are naturally good because we are part of this. The idea comes from knowing that our thoughts create our lives, and through affirmations, denials, and meditation and prayer, we create those thoughts. And then the expression comes when we know the truth and we express it, which brings us to our authentic self. It is the individualization of the infinite self. You've heard me say this all the time. We are the individualized expression of that one source, meaning that we are not we are in oneness, but we are not the same, as we all bring a special gift to this earth with us. We bring something special that is for us to express to everyone else. And when we hold on to that handbrake, we lose that expression. We are the multiplicity in the one. You are heart's desire, your gifts and talents, your joy, your juiciness, your badass selves live in your authentic self. Delight in living tells the truth about who you are. It's the open receiver of all good because it is not bound by limiting beliefs and historical inaccuracies. I'll leave you with another book which actually changed my life. Is Catherine Ponder's Open to Receive. It was given to me by Reverend Diane when I had my problem or my handbrake, where I love to give, but I never like to receive. It operates in concert with the infinite self. It gets validation from within. I love and trust myself. That feels right to me. I have a purpose. I am loved. It's productive. I am in control of my life. I think I head out and kick some, I think I'll head out and kick some butt. Love-based and is committed to creating a reality based on your limitless potential. As soon as you wake up from that trance of the false self that it has you in, you begin to see the authentic self. Your authentic self lives in the present. It is not looking for anything or a seeker. It is not a grasper, nor is it a controller. It believes in miracles. Okay? It believes in that expression. It believes in manifestation, whatever you want to call it. It believes and puts you there. But you've got to recognize that authentic self in yourself. What does your authentic self look like to you? So when you release the false self, you know what the infinite self is, and you find your authentic self, you will realize that when the authentic self docks into the infinite self, the false self leaves the room. There's a great movie I remember showing during Unity's movie nights, and it was called Kimare. And I may be pronouncing that wrong, but that's how I've been pronouncing that movie forever. And it talked about a young Indian man who said, I'm going to portray what people see a guru as, and traveled the world and just used basic philosophy and basic beliefs and started teaching people. And he met so many people, and at the end they gathered for one big meeting. And he had all his followers there, and he went back room, came back in his regular clothes, and admitted that he wasn't a teacher, he wasn't a guru, he wasn't anything. And in that moment, you saw the separation of people who were still stuck in their false beliefs, saying, he fooled us, he did this, he did that, because they were looking for someone who they felt is true. But the others that stayed literally affirmed to him, even if you didn't have a title, you're still a guru. You're still my guru. And that's when your authentic self and your infinite self dock into place. Those people who had that limiting belief left the room. And what was left were the true believers that knew that he was speaking from his infinite self. So another quote from page 49 in the book. We spend our lives drifting between glimpses of our own infinite glory and the fear that not only are we totally incapable, unworthy, lazy, horrible, but that it's only a matter of time before someone blows the whistle on us. We torture ourselves incessantly. And for what purpose? If we can glimpse the glory, and I know you can, why do we waste our precious time giving energy to the other options? Wouldn't life be so much more fun, productive, and sexy if we fully embraced our magnificent, delightful selves? And changing the sentence a little bit, wouldn't life be so much fun, productive, sexy if we were fully embraced of our authentic self? What are you willing today to move out of your comfort zone? Release that handbrake. Get to know your authentic self. Dock it with the infinite self, that small voice within you. That what we call one, the source, God, whatever it is to you. Intuition. When we plug into that, we dock our authentic self into that, and our false self starts to fall away. What can you accomplish today? What God-given gifts are there? And if you choose to stay with your false self, then the world loses the you-ness, that individualized gifts that you are here to bless other people with. I'm a true believer that the ascension of our consciousness is fully driven to get us to the point of serving other men and helping teach them what we have experienced and what we have learned, to help them elevate their consciousness, to alleviate that fear and to express that God-given gift. So let's take this moment now and just enter into a time of prayer and meditation. So if you feel so moved, go ahead and close your eyes. If you're listening to this on the podcast, don't close your eyes if you're driving. But if you are listening to this on YouTube or you're at home listening to the podcast, go ahead and close your eyes if you feel so moved. Take that deep breath. Feel that allness, that oneness that's around us. Feel the relaxation. And I know that this talk may have poked you a little bit and stirred some things up in you, and that's okay. Breathe in that goodness and that peace and let it out. Let the worry out. Worry doesn't exist anywhere but in your mind. Take another deep breath and know that what we're looking for, what we're grasping at, what we think we don't have, that only lives in our mind. Let's release that. And let's finally breathe into this present moment and just begin to affirm you are perfect. To think anything less is as pointless as a river thinking that it's got too many curves, or that it moves too slowly, or that the rapids are too rapid. Says who? You are on a journey with no divine beginning, middle, or end. There are no wrong twists and turns. There is just being. And your job is to be as you can. That is why you are here. To shy away from who you truly are would leave the world you-less. You are the only you there is and ever will be. I repeat, you are the only you there is and ever will be. Do not deny the world its one and only chance to bask in your brilliance. I want you to take that deep breath in again. And just take a moment in the silence and just think. Get to know your authentic self. You know who you are. You know what it looks like. And let's just take a moment. And as you see your authentic self, thank yourself. Thank yourself that you can see who you truly are. And we acknowledge, just as our principles say, that as a true expression of this source, as an individual expression of this source, that ultimate awesomeness that we are here to present to the people around us, that badass self that we are here to become so that others can see our light. We acknowledge it. We hold it in our mind. And we say thank you. Because we know that through our practice and through our knowledge, once we know better, we do better. And we're grateful for that. And we release this affirmation, we release this meditation, release this prayer. And we let it be. And we affirm it as so it is. So mote be, ashe, amen. Open your eyes if you feel so moved. Or you can continue to bask and look at your authentic self. And if you feel a little fear, that's okay. It means you're alive. You have an emotion. Eric Butterworth always reminds us it's for us to feel and grow through. And that's what we're doing for the next 4 weeks. You know, normally we go to a spiritual center or we go somewhere and everything is all butterflies and roses and unicorns. But if you know me, it's not about that. I want you to get like the mentors that I have that told me to stop the excuses that were nothing more than the lies that held me from my greatness. I want to be here to push you, help you get over that comfort zone and know that the success you seek, the authentic self you seek is just outside of that realm. So as always, if no one else has told you, I love you. Nothing you can do about it. Join me on this journey. We will come back next week with the next chapter or next installment of Being Your Badass Self. As always, if you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe, hit the bell so you're notified of a new episode of our Wisdom Wednesday. Also share this message with anyone you think that needs to hear it, as well as if you're listening to the podcast, subscribe to the podcast so you would be notified when the next episode drops. Join us Monday again for our Meditation Monday as we continue to work on different types of meditation to help us gain more inner peace and that focus in our lives that allows us to do the work that is ours to do. I bid you today namaste. I thank you again for being here, and I hope to see you on the next episode.